Fiyaz Mughal. Fiyaz is the founder and director of Faith Matters, an NGO which works on challenging extremism and developing platforms for discourse and interaction between faith communities right across the UK. Fiyaz will speak on the role of hate preachers in spreading anti-Ahmadi sentiment in the UK. Fiyaz.
Thank you very much, Siobhan. I just wanted to pick up on 4 key points here, really. The key points being that we need to be clear that there is an impact on the United Kingdom, and particularly within communities of Pakistani heritage, regarding what happens in Pakistan. It's something that I've always watched, and it's something that I've kept a track of. And the reality is that when there are major issues that take place in Pakistan at a political level, there are ramifications and there are significant changes here in the way Ahmadis are discriminated, even in our country. So a report that will come out later in the next few months is an area around local authorities and how local authorities in our country have been influenced by people who have a prejudice against Ahmadi communities to literally bar them from entering and being part of SACRE groups, the Standing Advisory Council groups that basically are there to provide advice and information on how religious educational literacy is provided in our country. And we have examples of where local authorities are being influenced, particularly officers are being influenced, sometimes by councillors who carry with them the prejudice baggage that comes from Pakistan, and who are then saying to local authority officers, please do not regard them as Muslims, i.e. Ahmadis as Muslims. Quote, they are heretics. They are not respected in Muslim communities. They can't be on sacred councils. We have prime examples of that, where bigotry is in effect being imported into our country, and where local authority officers are bypassing equalities laws to allow this bigotry to permeate and in effect reject Ahmadis from even sitting on the most basic councils in local authorities, i.e. sacred councils. So it's a shame that even local authority resources are being used in our country to in effect marginalise members of a very tiny minority in our country. And the question I say to these local authorities, who will be listed in the report, is you are not just an embarrassment. The fact is those councillors who are telling you that Ahmadis should be persecuted and prejudiced against need to be named and shamed. It is as simple as that. If you are a councillor and you are taking public monies to be a councillor and you are attempting to represent communities in your local area, you have no right spreading prejudice and bigotry against other local communities in your area. That's the first thing. The second thing is, we have also noticed a substantive amount of extremism in our country around the activity of people like Qadim Hussain Rizvi, who has been an extremist preacher in Pakistan, who has literally held the Pakistani state to, in effect, hostage. Now let me explain this. When Tanveer Ahmed, the killer of Asad Shah, decided that he was going to drive in his vehicle from the north of England to go and stab Asad Shah over 20 times on a street in Glasgow, his videos, or rather his audio, was put out by Qadim Hussain Rizvi. His audio was put out by Qadim Hussain Rizvi, this extremist cleric who has a significant following in Pakistan. His audio was put out in Pakistan on channels and on social media channels when Tanveer Ahmed was in Balini prison. So the question is, how did an extremist who murders a British citizen on the streets of Glasgow just for having alternative views and who happens to be Ahmadi, how did his audio get out of one of the most high security prisons, Balini prison, to end up in Pakistan in the hands of an extremist called Qadim Hussain Rizvi, who was playing these audio tapes, in effect knowing that that extremism would permeate into Pakistani communities here in the UK. So now you see a clear link to extremism. And I have been one of those individuals who has always said that anti-Ahmadi rhetoric, anti-Ahmadi prejudice is very closely linked to extremist rhetoric and extremist behaviour. you should not delineate the two. Anti-Ahmadi rhetoric and prejudice, we have prime examples in this report, this APPG report, of people being killed. Extremism is the marginalization of individuals, the dehumanization of individuals, and the targeting of individuals because of political rhetoric, sometimes interlinked with religious extremist views. How is this different? It is not. And so the reality is, the extremism and poison of Pakistan is percolating into sections of communities of Pakistani heritage who are picking this up. And the last thing I want to say is, I give an example. When Atif Mian, the individual who was appointed by Imran Khan to sit on the National Commission for Minorities, Atif Mian and Ahmadi was appointed to sit by Imran Khan, a really positive decision by the Prime Minister to make a difference, to show a symbolic desire to place the Ahmadi community with equal rights. There were huge demonstrations in Pakistan, again led by people like Qadim Hussain Rizvi, that effectively held the country to hostage. But what I found were mainstream imams in the UK on Pakistani cable television, effectively calling out for the discrimination of Ahmadis and asking for Imran Khan to kick off Atif Mian from a National Commission for Minorities. These are imams enjoying the values of the United Kingdom, enjoying the pluralism of our society, enjoying being a Muslim in the United Kingdom, but discriminating against other Muslims in Pakistan. I mean, how obscene can you get? Because if I can question those imams, and I, for example, said to them, what do you think of Islamophobia? You'd have them jumping up and down outside saying Islamophobia is terrible. But then they carry out Islamophobia against other Muslims in Pakistan, and the sheer hypocrisy stinks. And these are quite mainstream imams. I'll finish with this, Siobhan. Quite mainstream imams who have audiences of over 3,000 to 5,000 in their mosques. So I finish off by saying this, that this for me, as a British Muslim, is an endemic problem of prejudice and bigotry interspersed with violent extremism at points. We have an example. Assad Shah is an example. If there was no example, I'd say actually we haven't seen violent extremism. We have it interspersed, and as I say to police forces up and down the country, I say there are some indicators of looking for extremism. One is anti-Shia rhetoric, another is anti-Ahmadi rhetoric. When you see it, you will closely see aligned with it Islamist, extremist mentality, and sometimes Al-Qaeda and IS Islamist extremism. They are interspersed at points, and so we need to be very, very clear that we target this hatred with the resources we have, and as Sarah Khan is going to mention, her work also raises the anti-Ahmadi bigotry and its links with extremism. We need to keep shouting out about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiyaz. That was a tour de force. Thank you.